In the summer of 2020, 3 Scottish young men went missing in the search for the perfect movies. A year later their footage was found. This is the Shaky podcast.
Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Shaky podcast. It's been a few weeks. We've been really busy and we've taken some time to shuffle things around and we're going to do some stuff a bit differently. But we're back to talk about those long films you love to hear about. I'm here with Joe.
Hello.
And I'm here with Chris.
Hello.
And yep, we're still in that sort of lockdown adjacent period of time.
Yeah.
But we're back at work, so it's hard to fit in watching 17 movies in like 2 weeks.
Those were the days. We've not did one of these. The last time we recorded one of these was July 8th. And my movie list is 7 movies.
Yeah. But that's why obviously we've sort of we're kind of refocusing on like specific movies that we've all watched. We'll talk about those, and then we'll have some time we can talk about some other stuff. But if we're gonna watch less movies, we'll probably talk more in depth about specific movies because that's where the content is.
It's where that hot YouTube money is.
Deep in some films, some pictures, mate.
See, to be fair, when I become a Skater XL YouTube streamer celebrity, I'm not gonna need this anymore. So
that's fair, mate.
It's probably only a couple of episodes left in my locker, to be honest.
I Twitch streamed No Man's Sky the other day with Matt.
Alright.
That game's not good. Still not good all these years later.
Aye.
But what I did do was build some giant phallic objects.
Oh, good. Yep.
And there was a plant in it called a humming sack, and I was like, right, that's enough content.
It's just all about getting the message out there, you know.
Folk just need to know.
Yeah, it's not about profit or anything.
Nah.
Did you name it or did you find it as the humming sack?
No, I found it as that. You open it up and it's like an alien egg and there's a pearl inside it. So take from that information what you will. Inside every humming sack there's a
pearl.
Aye. That's quite beautiful.
That is. And that's been the show. Thanks so much for listening.
Give me money. Right, so we're back. So we're going to talk about the Benson and Moorhead trilogy. I guess it's not really a trilogy, but it kind of is. We'll get to that. But yeah, these two writer-director duo have done these 3 movies that are sort of indie, and all happen to be like readily available on various different UK streaming services.
That never happens.
I know.
It's so good.
So the 3 movies are Resolution, Spring, and The Endless. That's the order of release. Resolution's on Amazon Prime, Spring is on Shudder, and The Endless is on Netflix. Chris, I know that you've met these guys and you probably know a little bit more. I don't know if there's anything you want to say before we just start talking about the actual movies.
Well, we'll be able to go in deeper about that because, as you know, I kind of found it because I bought a film called The Endless, and kind of wished that I'd seen Resolution before that, but we'll get to that later. So yeah, I watched that and I was kind of mesmerised by it. So I was like, right, who are these guys? And it was just fortunate that in a couple of months' time they were actually coming to Glasgow to show their new film. So That was my sort of introduction into their filmography, and as you know, over the last couple of weeks, we've just kind of delved deeper and deeper. And they're kind of, they're exciting filmmakers, they're original filmmakers, so it's good to have that sort of excitement again.
Aye, definitely, man. And you met them, right?
They signed my ticket for the Synchronic premiere, and also I got a wee, a cheeky wee selfie with them. And Aaron Moorhead also said he was going to steal my Nightmare on Elm Street 3 Dream Warriors jumper, which I'm kind of glad that he didn't, but there's that.
So what you're saying is you were mugged by these two directors?
Yeah, Aaron Moorhead tried to mug me and then took a photo with me.
Are you saying that you are physically threatened by... Anyway, they sound like nice guys. I've watched some interviews with them and stuff after I watched these movies, because I just I need to know, and I'm very, very pleased. These movies are pretty out there. They're high concept is probably what some people would say, but it's nice that these guys they seem really normal. They're not like pretentious filmmakers or anything like that. They're just like, I wanted to make these movies and they're weird, but here you go. And that's always a good sign. I don't know, is there anything you guys want to say? I just want to jump into talking about these films.
I just want to give a before we start, warning that I'm currently sat on a camping chair in my living room recording this with my recording setup sat on a bedside table, because we're in the process of packing up our flat. So it's a bit creaky and stuff. So it's not ideal. There will be a bit of noise here and there. I can only apologise.
Deal with it.
Yeah, and I'm also trying to quietly drink beer, because as a shift worker, today is my Friday.
Quality.
Yep.
Right. So, let's talk about the first film. 2012. Is that right, Chris?
The John Cusack film, 2012.
Oh, Christ.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's where it all starts.
Let's start with that.
Let's not and say we did.
Yes, the first one was in 2012, but we never got it over here, I think, until 2017. I might be wrong, but I think that's when it came out over here.
They released it on like this Blu-ray with the Endless, right, or something. Right. Well, anyway, I've copied and pasted the plots from Wikipedia because
Hero.
Because the movies are quite heady and there's a lot going on, so I thought maybe just briefly go over these. Fair warning, we're going to spoil these movies. There's no way we can talk about these without spoiling them. So, like, I suggest you go watch them. They're amazing movies.
They're readily available.
What is it?
They're readily available as well, so check them out.
Exactly. Firing about it.
I feel like the conclusion we came to is that from now on, like 99% of our discussion about movies is going to be spoilers.
Yeah, like, it's just hard to be like, oh, this movie's really good, but I don't want to talk about it because people want to see it. Like,
aye.
Like, it doesn't work. But anyway, so if you've not seen these three movies, pause this, go watch all three in a row in release order. Come back, don't sleep. Listen to this podcast.
Stay hydrated.
You might die because it's a lot, but it's fine. Right, resolution. So resolution, in short, is this guy Mike leaves his pregnant wife and job to go out to the middle of nowhere in the wilderness in California to find his friend Chris, who has become like a meth addict and is living in this like derelict cabin type thing, I guess. So he goes out there in an effort to reason with him to go to rehab, and when he says no, decides he's like gonna get him forcibly clean.
I was going to say reasoning was an interesting choice of word there.
Yeah, he reasons with him for like 5 seconds and he tases him and handcuffs him to a pole. So yeah, so whilst that is happening, it's sort of like all this sort of weird stuff goes on, and you don't know if it's like something kind of paranormal's happening, or if it's like to do with him being like coming off these drugs, or like kind of that kind of thing. And it's these like so there's so much going on, man. So the guy arrives at the cabin and he handcuffs him to the pole to get him clean. And then after that, a couple of other drug dealers show up telling them that they want their drugs back. And then sort of after that is when things sort of start to get a little weird. Like, the character Mike goes out into the wilderness and like runs into this group of guys who claim to be from this like UFO death cult, which we'll come back around to later. He finds this guy Charles, who's a tribal security guard, who he learns owns the land and the building that Chris is living in, and tells him that he has to get out of there by the end of the week, or he's gonna like come kill them basically. And then after that, Mike finds this like book of scary campfire stories on the doorstep, and from there that's when it starts to sort of roll forward. He keeps finding all of these things like books, a projector with a movie in it, like paintings, VHSs, and it's all these clips of like people being murdered basically.
There's like scratchings on the cabin walls and that as well, isn't there?
Yeah, like kind of things start to get a little weird and you don't know what's going on. And that's when he goes into the woods and runs into the French guy in the RV. And he sort of like alludes to what's going on. But it's all sort of very like, it's vague. It's very vague. Then after that is sort of when it all starts to kind of come to, like Mike starts to piece it together, and basically it turns out that it's like this entity that lives in the woods that's like the paintings and the projections and the videos and stuff are like the sort of fates of people, and then the entity starts sending warnings of like Chris and Mike's fate. So it's like videos of them like dying and stuff, and they're like, how is this happening? And it's like then they need to try and escape the woods by using the videos that entities sending them and making sure that version of the future doesn't happen. And then at the end they sort of come face to face with the entity, and that's where it ends. So that's like a basic rundown of the plot. And maybe it sounds a bit confusing, but that's because the movie is confusing. So yeah, that's Resolution. You guys. So right, here's the thing: all these movies are connected. They're all connected in a way. And I watched them out of order, but you guys watched them in order.
I watched them in order. Yeah.
You watched them in order, yeah. Chris had seen The Endless, but
as someone that watched those movies in order, you should watch those movies in order.
Yes, you should.
Because I got to the end of Resolution and was like, I think I know what's going on, but I would love some more. And then you guys were like, well, that movie exists.
What did you
quite
think of this, like, seeing it sort of without any of the context? Like, what was your sort of initial impression?
I think the way they shoot their movies looks great. I liked it a whole lot. I found the main characters pretty personable. Apart from your only real example of horror movie logic from the main character, Mike, maybe don't go into the woods with your like drug addict crazy pal that shoots guns in there. But
maybe not.
So what I took from it was essentially us as the viewer and Mike as the main character who doesn't know anything. And you've got I forget the other character's name, the pal.
The junkie.
Chris.
Chris, is it?
Chris, yeah.
So Chris is alluding to sort of maybe starting to figure out what's going on because he's been out there long enough. But largely it is Mike who is our conduit into the world, and us as the viewer getting drip-fed information in the form of these videos, these projector slides, photos, stuff like that. I couldn't really figure out what was going on when it was stuff that wasn't related to them. Or, well, it was related to them, but it was just like, here's this thing you did earlier, or whatever, like you're being watched. But then when they get the video and it shows how they're going to die.
Uh-huh.
And that's when I was like, right, okay. Because I thought it was something to do with the girl at the door. So there's like a jump scare where there's a girl at the door and then they just never reference it again until they eventually reference it again in a different movie. So I thought it was a bit more of a kind of traditional horror like that, and then it turns out it's this sort of more supernatural thing. I thought it was good, like that leaves it open to your interpretation a bit. And I prefer to be like hit over the head with it, with stuff like that, which meant that like The Endless is one of my favourite movies of the last few years that I've seen, is because that is that movie hitting you over the head with exactly how this all works and what's happening, which I really appreciated. But taking Resolution itself, it flew by. It's 2 hours or whatever, and it's mostly just a couple of people speaking as every scene. There's no real, action, high tension set piece type stuff like your kind of bigger budget horror. It was just this overall creepiness throughout the movie. What I took from it when you eventually see them at the end speaking to this entity was that it dictates what's going to happen to you, and if you don't do it, you go back to the start.
Yeah.
Is what I took from it.
So like at the end of the movie, they see the entity, and like Chris falls to his knees and starts like begging for his life basically, and Michael asks, "Can we try it another way?" And that like implies that obviously they were getting sent all of these like potential endings to the movie essentially.
Yeah.
And they were like avoiding that happening. So like he's asking like if we avoided those, is there like another way we can try it, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that's when it ends, and there's like a little bit of, they don't really like, so obviously this and The Endless are quite closely connected, but there's a sort of like I feel like in this movie there's sort of like an implication that like we are the entity. Well, it's like the bit in the cabin where like the French guy is talking about like the mirror and like looking back at the mirror, but it looks like you're looking at like, I can't remember like the exact wording, but he's talking about like film reel and stuff.
Yeah.
And when he's talking about it, like you get the like film grain like artifacts on the screen and stuff. And like every time like the something kind of happens, you get that like film grain, like film burn stuff on the screen.
Yeah.
So like I don't know if that's like, that was like my interpretation of it, is that like somehow there's like this sort of aspect of like breaking the fourth wall, but it doesn't really.
I can see that where it's the film's in first person essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that. I got that
like,
kind of vibe for sure.
It's kind of filmed that way as well.
Like yeah.
It's kind of found footage, but not really. Like it's filmed as if it's filmed as if the person with the camera is there in the room. And there's a part where like the camera jolts forward, and they like acknowledge it.
Yeah.
The camera like jolts forward and it makes a noise, and they're like, "What was that?"
Aye.
And then it's just like they don't acknowledge it again, and stuff like that. It's really cool.
There's a point in the movie where maybe about halfway up to it, you're looking at it, you think, right, this is really weird, but it could all be explained. So there's like the videotapes they've got so far are from like outside the window and stuff. And then there's a bit, I think it's the same scene you're talking about when they're arguing, and then they receive a tape of them arguing, and it's filmed inside the room. And that's when, sort of, for me, everything changes to, no, there's definitely something else going on here.
Yeah, there's like a sort of a bit early in the movie where Chris mentions like the tall greys or whatever, like as if like aliens. And I was like, oh, I wonder what this is about, kind of thing, or if it's like just like him, like he's high or whatever. And that's kind of how it's passed off. And I remember thinking like, oh, it'd be cool if it was like aliens. Obviously it's not aliens, but like it's
if it was
something that's not. It's like paranormal.
I think if it was a standalone film, I could possibly have taken that as a conclusion, because the guy's so crazy and he's been on drugs for so long that he's saying, I'm shooting aliens that are coming to get me, and the guy's like, right, whatever. And then without obviously it continuing on in the endless, I think it could have been a justified idea, especially with the likes of all the scratchings in the cave and stuff like that, and the French students that went missing trying to look for something. It could have been a sort of logical conclusion, but obviously we'll talk about that later on.
I think that's one of the things that's so great about all of these movies, though, is like they all work totally independently of each other.
Aye.
Like I watched Endless before I watched Resolution, and like didn't know what Resolution was about at all.
That's so crazy to me that you would even do that.
And like watched it and was just like, yeah, that was amazing, but like had like no even any further knowledge. Like I could have happily just watched that and been like, yeah, that was great.
Aye.
And not like went looking for any more answers or anything. Which is wild that basically they've been like, here's these two movies. It's not new, like this kind of thing's been done before, but like the way they handled it's so good. And like I wonder what the sort of the thinking was when they made Resolution. Like I wonder if they were like, we're going to do this thing. I watched an interview where like when they kind of got given the money to make another movie, it was like they kind of just realised that like in their head they'd been building up that world since they'd made Resolution, and like had like all the logic was there. They'd never written it or anything. They just like kind of had conversations and agreed that this was how that world worked. And then we're like, oh wait, what if we just like wrote this down, and like that's what the Endless is.
Right. Okay.
Which is really cool because like they could have just not made that, and then the Resolution would have just been this like cool movie as well. It's just so weird. But yeah, relatively low budget. I'm assuming this movie. I didn't look it up.
It was 20,000.
That's mental.
Which is great considering how great it looks.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. But I was going to say, it looks incredible, like the way it's filmed. Like there's, sorry, because you don't see the creature. It's like it just works. You don't have to. It's that sort of Blair Witch thing in it. Like you don't see the witch, so it's what you don't see that's scarier.
Yeah.
And it still has a couple of really good and really earned jump scares in it.
Aye.
It's quite a scary last couple of minutes, definitely.
Aye, man. Yeah, that's kind of what I have to say on Resolution. Like,
Aye. I think the conversation on that will come back around talking about the Endless because they're so linked.
Yeah, totally. There's a lot more to say, but we'll say it later.
I just spent all of the Endless texting Chris in capital letters about bits that I was watching.
I did that, but like the other way around. So when I started watching Resolution, I was just like, oh my god. Like I just was like, oh my god, what? So good, man. So the second movie, which we actually all watched together.
Yeah,
we did.
Oh, pardon me. Sorry. I've just came off night shift. I'm obnoxiously yawning into the podcast.
Yeah, so we kind of got together for the first time in a very long time.
It was super cool. I really liked it.
And we got some takeout.
We did.
From Papa Ali's.
Yeah.
And
It's
had
no
a-
it's no volcano, but
it's no volcano, but
it's
pretty
pretty good.
it's pretty good. No judgment. And we watched Spring, which was Benson and Moorhead's second movie. This one is not really connected in any way apart from like an offhand mention of a character's name. But Chris had said to me that the way they write their movies is that like logically they could all take place in the same universe.
Yeah. They said that they might not necessarily, but they wouldn't contradict like
Logic and
any
stuff.
logic or theories or anything like that.
That's cool.
Like at a certain point, the mention of that character could just be for a laugh.
Aye.
Like it's not a like spin off or anything.
But also I have some theories.
Oh, okay.
But we'll get to that, right? So this movie follows Evan, who at the start of the movie loses his mum to cancer, and then at the funeral gets in a fight with this like gangster dude at sort of like at the wake or whatever, which happens to be the place he works. So he gets sacked from his job, and his friend, played by the guy who played Chris in Resolution, but not playing the same character, tells him that he should go and like see the world and stuff. So he goes to Italy, where he sort of like runs into these two very, very accurate, very laddish British men.
Aye, they're a good mix of obnoxious but also talk like
Yeah, it's very
normal.
Yeah, it's very realistic to the point where it's like endearing. You're like,
Aye,
they must know some British guys.
it's not Eurotrip Vinnie Jones.
I wish it was.
I mean, aye.
So yeah, and then they kind of like, it's like Rome. They sort of set off from Rome and go to like the Italian like countryside. When he's there, he sees this girl and he sort of like, it's love at first sight. And he like runs into her and keeps trying to ask her out, and eventually she says yes. They go out and they sleep together. The next morning she wakes up and her like face is all messed up. She looks like a monster. And she runs outside and there's a cat and she kills a cat. And then sort of, it's this sort of like,
Then it ends.
it's like a very nice romance story
It is absolutely tremendous.
with like just these like spurts of like horror thrown in. So like Evan starts working at a farm and he's like dating this girl, and every so often you see these sort of glimpses of this like weird sort of body horror transformation that's happening to her. But every time it's like a kind of different animal, like she's a cat and then she's a wolf. And it sort of keeps you on your toes as to what it is, because I thought it was going to be a werewolf movie.
I think we spent a solid like 10 minutes just yelling about werewolves in my flat.
Aye.
Watching it.
Well, there was a scene she was turned into a wolf and there was a full moon, so that was definitely like deliberate, surely.
Aye.
But at least there wasn't two moons. We'll get to that later.
We'll get to that later. So there's this sort of like running theme through it where like they keep going back to this art gallery, and it's this woman, it's like focused on paintings of this woman who has like two different coloured eye pupils. And then like sort of halfway through the movie it is revealed that the girl Louise that Evan's dating has two different coloured eye pupils, and that's sort of where it all starts to be like, oh right, she's that girl and she is immortal. But this is only like halfway through the movie, so it's not the big twist at the end, which is cool, because then Evan just starts dating this girl even though he knows that she's like a shape-shifting like creature thing. So she explains to him that she's this like 2,000-year-old mutant that has to like sleep with a guy and become pregnant to like steal the stem cells so that she can stay immortal. That's correct, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
And she can like not do it, and she won't be like, she won't go through these horrible transformations, but she will die. So like she keeps doing it. Every 20 years in the spring, she gets herself pregnant. To keep herself young. So it's like coming up on the, because she's like with Evan and got pregnant, it's coming up on her like next big transformation where she's gonna like re-evolve and like be half of Evan's DNA and be like totally different.
It's basically like Doctor Who.
Yeah, it kind of is.
Every 20 years she changes into a different like human.
Person. Yeah. But to do it, she has to like change into all this gross stuff first. It's like all the creatures that are in our evolutionary line.
Yeah.
She like changes into, so.
And this is consistent. So every like couple of days and stuff, she'll have some sort of like grotesque mutation, and she injects herself with stem cells to
counteract
get it to keep it in check. Yeah.
And then she says basically like, if she can fall in love, like she won't change form.
Yep.
She'll stay as like Louise, the Louise that we know. And so like the kind of last like 20 minutes of the movie is like they like run away and spend the last 24 hours together, and he tries to like make her fall in love, and then at the end you don't really find out what happens.
I think you totally do.
I know you do.
I think you totally do. Yeah. It's so I read about this extensively, so I like knew what I was talking about. And just in relation to it, so see the thing about falling in love or not, essentially, is that if she gets pregnant, her body uses the stem cells from the pregnancy to regenerate her and keeping her immortal. If she doesn't do it, she'll just stay as, you know, the form she's in, and she'll age appropriately as we all do. The issue comes in that if she's pregnant and falls in love, the chemical response of her body in this movie world, I don't know about the actual like potential comparable science that would go with it, but if she falls in love, the chemical response of her body will block her body from using the stem cells because it will want to keep the baby, and in turn will prevent her from being immortal.
Right, okay.
And that's why if she falls in love, she'll stay the same. Which is like a really nice, like sweet plot point, and also they play into this sciencey, horror-y kind of thing that's going on.
Yeah.
It's all like super well thought out, and it makes a lot of sense. And it's the thing I really like that we've like argued about on the podcast before, of like they're like, here's this bullet point list of the rules of our movie world and how they work.
Yeah.
And like I love that. I'm a sucker for that.
That's a sort of running thing through all these movies.
Yep. Yeah.
Is it like they clearly like have sat down and wrote like a kind of a Bible, like a story Bible for this world.
Yeah.
And like that's how this works, and it doesn't change.
Yeah.
It doesn't change because it's convenient to the plot or anything like that. Like it stays that way.
It's not like Nightmare on Elm Street when he can come into the real world in the second one and then never mention it again.
Aye, it's that kind of thing. So, like, I took the end as being, maybe I'm just not remembering it. Like, what, does she stay the same?
So there's a scene.
You hear some noises and you think she's changing, and then it pans down and nothing's happening. So I took that as he's expecting it in his head and nothing happens, and they've fell in love, and they're they're going to have their life together.
Fair enough.
Which was nice. I didn't expect that. So
yeah, it's this sort of if you took the horror out of it, it would just be like a very nice love story.
I was saying to Kelly we should watch it because, like, I'm a delicate flower. I'm a sucker for that kind of thing. I thought it was really good.
Yeah, it was.
There's definitely a
and
kind of
it's
sense of like Beauty and the Beast almost, but like
yeah,
almost like a body horror version.
it was like a kind of, it has like vibes of like old monster movies, like Phantom of the Opera and like even like Dracula and stuff like that, where it's like a lot of like horror movies back in the day had sort of like romantic elements to them. Do you know what I mean? Like they had like forbidden love and all that kind of stuff, whereas like now it's like not that at all. But I think I think they did. It's just, it's hard to be like, not just be like, this movie's so good, but
It's tremendous. It's
like,
the things that stick out for me are that they play by their rule book.
yeah,
They essentially create a plot device. If you really want to break it down and, you know, look behind the curtain or whatever, not that I'm in any way qualified to do that, but they essentially create a plot device where there are stakes for them falling in love. And that's like, they write a romance movie where all those movies are about folk falling in love, because us as humans can all relate to it, because, you know, we've all either been there, want to be there, etc. It's that a basic kind of human emotion, so it appeals to a large amount of people. But there's like no stakes in that really. Like if you watch a rom-com or whatever, it's just, you know, going through the motions. Whereas the way they set up the story here, there's stakes to the simplest of human emotions, and I thought it was genius. I thought it was an absolutely tremendous movie.
yeah. Another thing with these movies as well that we've not really talked about is like they're really funny.
Yeah.
Not in that way where like they're going for laughs. I think it's just that like they write the characters realistically, where like a lot of these situations you would find the humour in it because you would like have to.
Aye, the dialogue's all really good.
And I don't know if that's like, I don't know if part of that is like they're casting like their mates in it or whatever, because it's like low budget movies and like they know the actors and stuff and they can sort of write for them and that. Not to say that like the actors aren't great, because they are, but like I know that a lot of the guys that are in Resolution and a lot of the guys that I think are in The Endless as well are like, they're not actors, they're other filmmakers that have like made other movies and stuff.
Even in Spring, the guy's pal is Jeremy Radner, who's the director of After Midnight.
Aye, yeah,
which they then produced. So,
but it's I love Spring. It's not much to talk about like in terms of how it all connects, because it's not really. They mention one of the characters that's mentioned in Resolution is then mentioned in Spring, who you then meet in The Endless, so it's like a sort of long play set up, which is cool, because I wonder if like they wanted to make The Endless but were like, oh, we should make this first. But yeah, it's one of those ones where it's just like it's so weird, because like parts of it are scary, like parts of it are like, especially if you're into like movies like The Thing and stuff like that, like a body horror, transformation stuff. Like the effects are great, practical effects, mostly practical effects, but they've like thrown it into this like movie that like someone's mum would watch and be like, oh, that's nice.
Aye.
It's so weird.
Super
this is
unique.
Probably a good one. This is probably a good one to kind of bring up that so Aaron Moorhead is the main one out of the two on the cinematography. He's a cinematographer, and he also, well, for the first 2 to 3 films he mostly done, and then in Synchronic he helped out with the visual effects. So he has focuses on that, and then Justin Benson is the main writer, and then obviously they both direct together. So when you kind of look at it like that, you can see like personalities coming out in it, if that makes sense. They've obviously got a thing where they can bounce off each other, and I think that's almost sort of like then reimagined in the characters, probably because they've got such a good sort of working relationship and all that the characters come across with like a good flow, if that makes sense.
Aye.
Yeah.
It's the thing you always hear of, like, writing dialogues extremely difficult to seem like natural and stuff, and they do a tremendous job of it. There's some great moments of characters just being like, what is happening, and like that doesn't happen enough. Do you know what I mean? Like, and I love like, you know, Halloween, for example, right? But at no point in Halloween, or at least the kind of the newest one, is anyone like, what's this all about? A guy with a mask cutting about killing folk. Do you know what I mean? They're all just like, oh, I guess it's happening. Oh,
Yeah.
you know,
There's,
whereas
like, parts...
sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, there's parts of this where obviously, like, they are like, this is wild or whatever, but then, like, the sort of they also have that sort of thing where they're just like, well, I guess I'm in this.
Aye.
It's not like they don't freak out like you would expect in a horror movie. Like, they just kind of act like how probably like a person would act, where they'd be like, oh well, I guess I'm screwed. They're like, guess like,
Aye.
whatever kind of thing. Like, it's not like, I don't know. I'd love to see them I'd love to see them do like a version of like a slasher movie, or like a kind of generic movie where like they write the characters, because like it's one of those things where like when you watch a movie that's got like a horror movie, especially when it's got teens in it, like the dialogue's like rank rotten.
Aye.
It's like never like, because it's written by folk who don't know what kids talk like. But Chris has you've seen the newest one, Chris, right? But it's not out yet. I would love to see them do.
That was going to be my question: is when can I get my hands on whatever's next?
Well, I was actually just looking this up just before we jumped on here, and all the stuff's still saying late 2020. When I was at some Chronic, they said they were expecting it about September, but there's been no mention of it yet, probably because they were also after a limited theatrical run as well.
So you saw this at Fleet Fest?
Aye.
Is it good?
Well, I seen the new director's cut of it, so they released it, and then they actually used all their own money. It wasn't, they went to the producers and said, we want to recut this and re-edit it, and the producers are like, well, we're not going to spend that, and they're saying it's fine, we will. So they were like, yeah, go for it. So they did a new cut of it, and I believe that the first 10 minutes of the movie was brand new, and then the rest of it is cut, so it's got like a slowed down pace. And they said they also made the ending, which I won't talk about because it's a very good ending, like more, they gave a bit more clarification on the ending.
Cool, okay. I don't want to know anything about it, because
no, I mean,
that's
the
way you should watch these movies.
Yeah, I can give you a brief synopsis if you also want it later on.
Just a generic one, sure. Like super generic.
These two paramedics who have responded to some weird deaths start tracking down this new designer drug, which people believe can make you travel through time.
That sounds good. Cool. Is it good? Did you like it?
Yeah, I really liked it. It feels a bit
Awesome.
more mainstream than their other stuff.
Good. Like they deserve that much, I think. Like
this one has like known actors in it, right?
Anthony Mackie and Jamie Dornan.
Oh really? Oh, okay.
So it's it's getting, they're definitely picking up their or boosting their resume, which I'm very excited about because they're still young actors, young directors, they're in their mid-30s, so there's a lot to come.
Someone should probably let these guys make the new Nightmare on Elm Street, because I would watch that.
I would love to see them do a Doctor Strange film.
That would be really good, actually.
Aye.
Like, The Endless is now in the MCU.
Anything that has that sort of mystic or like kind of strange
Lovecraft style.
Aye, like that's becoming sort of more relevant again. Like recently with like Colour Out of Space and stuff like that, and Underwater. But like, it's such a, like they've obviously kind of been at it for a while, and it's cool. It's like it's different.
I want to see you underwater. I'm waiting on it showing up on that like Amazon $1.99 rental list.
I'm sure it will. It's good, man. It's
I think it might already have done. I might be wrong.
Nah, I would have got it if it had.
Maybe not.
I check that thing like every couple of days, man.
See, just before we go off this topic here, just as we move on to the Endless, what we're saying about the sort of like natural, like realistic personalities and conversations and characters that they have. There's something in that for me for the Endless, and it also probably ties into the fact that the directors are also the main characters in the film, and they're both called Justin and Aaron. And I think like there's a scene we'll talk about in a minute when Justin's like going from one time loop to another, and he's just like, right, what's going on and stuff like that. And I just kind of think that's exactly how someone walking into the world of Resolution or the Endless would react in real life.
Aye.
Do you know what I mean?
Aye, it's kind of like this. It doesn't freak out, but it's like kind of casual confusion.
Yeah.
Where he's just like, this is weird, isn't it?
See, before we start on the Endless, I'm just going to quickly grab a beverage.
Right, okay.
I'll literally be 30 seconds.
No worries. Aye. I don't really know what to talk about while Joe's away, apart from the So,
We could
Chris,
talk
are you-
about Joe.
what?
None. On you go.
I was just going to say, you might see some stuff later in the month from me and Chris, because we're going to do the Fright Fest digital festival. I don't know what they're calling it.
The Fright Fest, Digifest, Horror Festival.
Fright Fest at
Maybe.
home.
Yes, there's just
Something like
Fright Fest online, just something. I don't know what they.
Aye, but they're doing like essentially Fright Fest, but they stream all the movies online. And I think I'm just going to copy Chris's list that he's watching, and then we can just talk about them.
Yeah, there's a couple. Because they're showing two different streams of different premieres. It's kind of hard to pick out. I'm still struggling which ones I'm going to pick. A couple of them that we're definitely going to do. You've got a nice wee first-hand review on Sky Sharks and Aqua Slash for sure.
Can't wait for these water-based horrors. No, Sky Sharks is in the sky, so I guess it's not really. But
I'm back.
right,
Sorry about that.
it's cool.
The humidity in the big city up here is outrageous right now. Need some liquid.
Right, so let's get into the heavy, the big boy. Got you a big.
Sorry.
Sorry.
It's really hard not to interrupt each other on Skype because there's a delay. This is the best movie I've seen since 1917.
It's so good.
That's
Joe's been alive for that long.
Yeah, since the year 1917.
Aye.
Right, so the big boy, the sort of heavy hitter here, the Endless. It's about two brothers in a van.
Just don't.
So these two brothers, Justin and Aaron, get a video cassette sent in the mail from Camp Arcadia, which is a group they used to belong to when they were young adults. But both of them have like different recollections of the camp. Justin tells his brother that the camp was a UFO death cult, which is a phrase that gets tossed around a lot in the movie. But Aaron remembers having like good times and it being like friendly and not like culty, basically. And then on the video cassette, it's like a girl telling them that they're okay and stuff, but that like they're going to be going away for a while. Aaron says that it proves that they're alive, but Justin is worried that when they say that they talk about ascension, that might be code for like a mass suicide, as cults tend to do. So Aaron's like sort of kind of hates his life. after leaving the camp, they struggle to find jobs, they can't make friends or get girlfriends because it was this big like media thing where like they were on the news telling folk that they'd left a cult and stuff. So he convinces Justin to go back to the camp for one day just to check that everyone's still there. That's sort of where the movie starts. So they go on like a sort of road trip up to the camp, where everyone welcomes him, get a warm welcome, but some weird stuff sort of starts straight away. They mention that like it doesn't look like anyone's aged a day since they left. There's like sort of immediately Aaron's like kind of all for it, like back in, and Justin's sort of like, nah, I don't want any part of this. And you start to meet all these camp members, and there's Hal, who seems to be like a sort of cult leader-y type guy who's like super nice, but also kind of
brainwashed almost.
And then one day, the cult does this thing, or that night, I guess the cult does this thing, where like they have a game of tug of war with the forest. Or I don't know how to explain it, but it's a tug of war.
Some sort
goes
of
into the
entity.
dark woods, and you can't see what's on the other side. And it's meant to sort of represent like your strength or your commitment to the cult or whatever. Justin does it, and obviously like kind of wins straight away, and Aaron does it, and he gets like flown around.
Well, other way about.
Other way about. Sorry. So, as this is all happening, like, they start to find, funnily enough, pictures. Not unlike Resolution, just lying around. They find these pictures that sort of show pictures of them, or like basically like they're being watched, like that kind of same vibe.
Identical vibe.
Aye. So Justin takes the picture to Hal, and he's like, "What's this about?" And Hal's like, "I don't know anything. I just talk a lot," kind of thing. And he tells him that if he wants to find the answer, he has to go look for it. Like the pictures like of the lake, and he's like, "You have to go to the bottom of the lake and find out." So Aaron and Justin go out fishing, and he jumps to the bottom of the lake. He's like down there for a while, and he comes up. He's got this box, and inside the box there's another tape. So Justin's like, "Nah, I'm out. This is too weird."
Well, he also sees a monster in the lake as well.
Yeah, it's sort of like he says he sees something. He says that something held him down, and then you get this like aerial shot of the lake, and you kind of see a shadow of something like underneath it.
It pans out, and you basically see like a Rorschach mask design thing.
In the water, yeah.
Because I thought that would be cool on a poster.
Yeah, it would.
Like exactly that, and just the endless at the bottom.
And then sort of with that, he gets freaked out. They try to leave, and like he argues with the camp members. And then the tape. So this is like this is sort of where you start to see that it's all connected.
Aye.
The tape is the scene from Resolution where Mike runs into those two characters.
Aye.
So when I said earlier that Mike ran into the guys from the cult, it's Justin and Aaron from The Endless.
Yep.
And that scene is like the scene that is on the tape. And then everyone gets mad because it turns out that Justin made up a lot of the stuff to get him and his brother out because he was suspicious of them but didn't have any proof.
Yeah.
So there's like a sort of big falling out. Aaron doesn't want to leave.
I thought that was a really good plot point, actually.
Yeah.
Of like, you're led to believe this is this crazy cult and the mass suicide plans and all this, and they were pulled out for their own safety, and then it turns out that a lot of that's just totally not true. I thought that was like really good. Like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, it subverts your expectations in a really good way, which I thought was good.
Because obviously I started watching this, I hadn't seen Resolution, and I was getting like big Midsummer vibes from it.
Aye.
Like, I was like, oh, this is going to be like a Midsummer situation, and it's totally not that at all.
I really liked that it wasn't that. Like, I really liked that they went back on that, and it was like, no, it's just some pretty chill folks.
Yeah, it's just these people who are like stuck in a time loop forever, so like they're just doing what they want.
Aye.
So, sorry.
I also went to the bathroom during the bit where they explained that everyone looked the same. So I had to go on the Wikipedia plot synopsis to figure out, because there's a scene where like one of them's like chatting to a girl, and they discuss that girl is now like 50 or whatever.
Yeah.
Before the time loop stuff's explained, and I was like, what?
What are
you talking about?
11 or whatever, yeah.
I was like, what is that even in reference to at all? What does that mean? But hail me for not pausing
it. Aye, so like they kind of have that sort of, they get in a fight, and Aaron's like, I'm staying here, I don't want to leave, and Justin tries to leave but the car won't start, so he goes off into the woods to try and find help. And then when he's in the woods, that's when he starts to sort of discover all of these people who are stuck in these different time loops.
Yeah.
So he comes across Shitty Carol, who is a character that's been mentioned in Resolution and in Spring. And now eventually in this movie we get to see him. And he's stuck in like a 3-hour time loop.
Aye.
So he kind of like gives Justin all this sort of exposition.
He is your plot exposition dump.
Aye, he's like, here's how this works. It's time loops. Here are like all these circles, blah blah blah. Like, he explains it all.
Yeah.
And then he kind of sends him out. He's like, I'll get you back to the camp if you go get me a gun. And he's like, okay. And he's like, draws him out this map. And he's like, avoid these time loops, blah blah blah. And he goes to get the gun, and it turns out the person he goes to get the gun from is Mike and Chris from Resolution.
Aye. See even before that.
Aye.
See the bit where I just like biffed out completely and started texting Chris in capital letters. Was it still like all like drinking or whatever? I don't even know if they drink in it, but like they're all chilling in the kind of commune or whatever, right? And there's this girl talking to Justin. Mm-hmm. And she's like, yeah, I was in a mental institution, and I was like on pills and on drugs, and yeah, it was crazy. I used to just go like watch these guys in this house. And I was like, oh my god, what? Like, just totally like freaked out, because like that jump scare got me so hard watching Resolution.
Yeah.
And it was like the one bit that really made me jump, and I was like, oh my god, this is the best thing ever. Like, this is, you guys had said to me that like it'll scratch that like lost itch. And it does that like so much. Like, it is my kind of storytelling. It is exactly like what I wanted that movie to be. But sorry to interrupt. Just
no,
that bit really.
I'm just trying to get like the plot out, and then we can go back and talk about like all.
Aye. Sorry.
Just
wanted to get that in there.
So he kind of like basically like walks around the woods and encounters like all of these places that are scenes from Resolution, and then eventually like Justin and Aaron find each other, and they're like, we need to get out of here, it's mental, like I don't know what's going on. They get back to the camp, everyone's disappeared, and they assume that they've like quote unquote ascended.
Aye.
But he's like, nah, like it's this time loop thing, like we need to get out of here, and like it's the end of it's like basically like a race to get away from the entity as it like resets that time loop.
Yeah, a super crucial part of Shitty Carl's plot exposition is he says, no matter what you see, no matter what it shows you, follow the compass.
Aye.
And we'll come back to that later, because me and Chris discussed a little bit over text, like how we took the movie and what we thought it happened and stuff like that. But that's important.
So like everything starts getting like ripped up from the ground and stuff's flying into the air and all that, and like they're like trying to get their car to start so they can get away, and like eventually like they make it, and it's like this sort of like they have this like bonding moment where like Aaron Aaron tells him that like all he ever wanted to be was like taken seriously, and that like Justin's like a pure control freak and all that, and like they sort of resolve their issues, and they like eventually they get away, like they make it out of the time loop, and then that's sort of like where the movie ends. Like the characters have sort of grown, and like you see like the camp reset, and like their realization that Justin and Aaron aren't there, and that's sort of that's like the kind of plot of the movie basically. It's hard to explain because like a lot goes on and a lot of it's like interpretation based and.
Aye, but it's one of those things where we used to doing these and discussing movies that folk perhaps haven't seen. Like folk aren't they listening to this if they've not seen these movies?
Aye.
So the kind of brief plot summary is fine, I would say.
So yeah, that's sort of the big kicker of this is that. Like, The Endless is, like, basically a sequel.
Oh, like 100%.
Like, you can watch them totally independently. Like I said, I watched The Endless first and was, like, totally understood everything that was going on. Like, it was fine. I just assumed these characters were characters. It didn't really, like, make a difference. But if you're going to watch these, watch Resolution first. But what were you guys saying about how you guys interpreted the movie?
We didn't dig too deep just because it's better, like... When we say we don't discuss this away from the podcast, like we genuinely mean it. It's so much better if the conversation comes out kind of naturally. Like what I took from it was that to get out of the time loop, and from what Carl says to him, it is you just leave.
Yeah.
But the way the entity affects people and stuff, it drives you back into its kind of area it controls or whatever. Mm-hmm. So it's like easier said than done, but I liked that it was as simple as drive out of here, you know? Like if you escape this area, you're free. It's as simple as that. And again, I really liked the like definitive ending. There was nothing left up to interpretation. Like they get out and they're fine.
Yeah.
But like the thing of they drive like directly head on into a vehicle that's not there.
Uh-huh.
And what I took from that was that see how the mum died in a car crash there?
Uh-huh.
That she was escaping the entity with them when they were kids, and something went wrong and she crashed the car because of what it was showing them.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
I'm kind of tossed up between kind of two ideas. The kind of first time I'd watched it, I was thinking that because they're entering and leaving the likes of the Resolution loop and Shitty Carol's loop and stuff like that, that the reason is that wasn't their time loop, so they weren't affected by it. But with the ending of the film, I kind of wonder if once the time loop resets and you're inside it, if that means that you're then stuck.
I think that's how I interpreted it. So when they were in it the first time, they weren't there for 10 years. So they got out before it reset. And then the second time they go back into it, but they happen to go back into it like right before it resets.
Ah.
Which is like why they have to get out before the ascension.
There's like
oh right, okay. That makes sense.
Justin just leaves Shitty Carol before he shoots himself again. Or hangs himself, and then there's a bit when like you see that guy stuck in the 10-second loop and it's quite horrific, and the guy's screaming, "Don't come here, get out, just get away." So he like runs towards him to give him a fright, and it's almost like if you come in, you're stuck here basically.
Stuck in it, yeah.
Ah, yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
that was how I guessed it would have.
And that ties in with like what I was kind of saying as well, of if you get out, you're out, you know.
Aye, like you're safe if you're not in the area.
Aye, yeah, that makes sense. I just thought like all the tie-ins were tremendous. Like there's maybe a half hour, 40-minute stretch in the movie where like every 5 minutes there's like, remember this thing from Resolution? We've got a wee reference for that. You know, and then a few minutes later we're like, mind that bit, get a load of this. And like every time they did it, I was like, this is the best thing ever.
It's cool, man. And there's some of them that I watched like a video after it that sort of laid some of the connections out, and there's ones that like folk don't really mention.
Yeah, I should probably watch that.
Like that one with the girl. The girl who's the artist, who was the girl at the window in Resolution.
Yep.
Like, I can't find that anywhere. Like, written. Like there's like videos that are like, here's these connections between these movies, and like no one mentions that, and it's like definitely that.
Oh, aye.
Like, that's what it is.
Aye.
One of the ones I thought as well is in Resolution, like he finds that room that has like all the videos and stuff in it.
Yep.
Like that's the big locked room from The Endless, right?
Yeah.
That they go into, like, that no one mentions that. But then there's like kind of more obvious ones. The kind of crying girl that Justin talks to in the camp is Mike's wife. Who's come up to find him.
Aye. That was like messing with my brain, because I was just like, I know who that is and I can't place it. And she's like talking about her husband's missing and stuff, and still I like didn't connect it, just being like a total idiot. Like, I was like, I'm sure I know who that is.
I like how they like well, no, I guess they don't really. I was going to say like the logic that because like Mike looks older, but it's not, because it doesn't work in the logic of the movie. It's just that the actor got older.
Aye,
it doesn't matter. But I like so obviously like Justin and Aaron are two characters that were in Resolution very briefly, and then are the main characters of this movie, which is very cool. There's a couple of recurring actors that I don't think play the same characters. The guy that plays Hal's in Resolution, he's like the guy who tries to buy the house off of them.
Right, okay. See, for what it's worth, I didn't realise the folk that he sees at the lake in Resolution were Aaron and Justin.
Yeah, it's them. Yeah.
And from seeing both movies recently, like I didn't add that up, to be fair. That to me was very cool. But I think just the sort of whole attention to detail. It was obviously filmed in the same location. Yeah.
Like Justin and Aaron find the RV that the French guy was in. You don't see him or anything like that.
Aye.
They got up to the door, and he's like out looking for these people, and it's like a date, but there's like 2 question marks where the year should be. That was cool. Sort of they go back to the place from Resolution, and like the sort of recreation of like the start of the movie.
Yep.
When Justin sees the time reset and stuff, is like really cool. I love that stuff. Like they've obviously like they care about it a lot, so it's just like we're gonna make this like really accurate, and it's just so good, man. It's just so good. It's so good. I don't even know what else to say.
We've went pretty deep on it, like.
Yeah.
I think like without like accompanying video clips, what else is there to say?
I know. It's just like I've never. It's been a very long time since someone's been like, you should watch these movies made by the same people. When I've watched all of them and been like, these are all amazing.
Aye.
Like,
I think Resolution is the weakest, just given that the two after it are so much like so good.
Aye.
Do you know, like I can't see myself watching Resolution again.
Yeah, I get what you mean. Like if someone was like, I've never seen these, but I want to see them, I'd be like, let's sit down and watch both.
Aye, and
like,
it's
double bill it.
It's a case of, like, if we did, like, we'll do our top tens, well, maybe not this year, seeing as how movies aren't really coming out, obviously. But, like, usually you would do your top 10 2020 new releases or whatever. See, if I was doing, like, a top 10 of movies I watched this year, like, they're both top 5, Spring and The Endless.
Yeah, man.
Like, easily.
It's wild to me that people aren't raving about these guys, man. Like, I'm sure they are if you go looking for it, but like,
Aye, like they will be. This stuff takes time. Like,
aye, it's just like I'm just like,
quality shines through in the end. You know, like it's not
like if you're into, like if you're watching these, if you've never heard of these guys, if you're into Ari Aster's movies or Jordan Peele's movies and stuff like that, that kind of the term people use is elevated horror. I don't like that term, but like that's the term people use.
Right, okay.
Like, if you're into that kind of thing, like movies like The Witch and stuff like that, like this is the kind of like this is
horror by folk that watched Lost.
Yeah, it's just horror that's not made by Blumhouse.
I mean, aye. Like, we talked to Josh from Movie Timelines about that, and like I think the Blumhouse style certainly has its place.
Yeah, totally.
Like, I have a, and that's like one part where we differed because he was pretty down on it all. Like I see it's that pure stereotype, right? But see as like a date movie, like see if me and Kelly are gonna go watch a movie or whatever, like Blumhouse stuff's perfect because it's accessible, it's easy to watch, it creeps you out, you know.
One of my earliest dates I went on with Larissa was to see Countdown.
I watched that the other day.
Yeah, it's like a perfect date movie.
I watched it last night actually, the night before maybe.
Are we gonna do like a wee hit list of other stuff we've watched that isn't these movies?
I don't even know if I can think of stuff I've watched, but we can if we
want. I do have a list.
Right, just
a couple of wee shout outs each then.
Hold on, right, just to wrap up the Benson and Moorhead stuff. Go watch it if you haven't, because it's unbelievable.
Absolutely tremendous.
Yeah,
I was blown away.
Aye.
It's that I'm guilty of, like, folk will tell me to watch something, tell me to watch something. I'll be like, I'll get to it. Like, see now after watching that and the extent to which I enjoyed it, like, it has changed how I will take folks' recommendations from now on. The fact that I could have saw that sooner, I'm like disappointed in myself. That's genuinely how much it stuck with me and how much I liked, especially Spring and The Endless.
Yeah.
It was like, I can't remember liking a movie this much for like 6 months. And it's not to say, like, that, as we've spoke about extensively on this podcast, like, I've had and I know my, like, bullshit meter is a lot less sensitive than you guys's. I guess I have lower standards, but like I've been on a like A-tier run of I've not really watched much this year that I've not liked. Yeah. I've maybe seen like a handful of movies that I've genuinely not liked.
When you're not going to see stuff in the cinema, like it's pretty hard to like make yourself watch stuff you know you're not going to like. You know what I mean?
Aye.
Like,
so I guess the real question is The Endless. Would you pay $30 on Disney Plus to watch it?
I wouldn't pay $30 on Disney Plus to watch anything. So it does. Oh man!
I think in my head, see all the Disney stuff. I'm like, well, I guess if we all watch it in my bit and like split it, it's the same as going to the cinema. But like, also, it's not the same as going to the cinema. So.
Yeah, it's
you know what I mean?
Like,
I feel like as much as this is our hobby and you know we don't, it's not a business or anything. Like with that stuff, I do feel a certain obligation to watch it.
I just think it's bullshit because it's like, oh, it's $30, but you keep it, but like that's going to be on Disney Plus in like a year.
But see, the thing is, it will stream indefinitely. is the phrasing.
That's dumb.
So you pay $30 and then it also might go away at some point.
I just don't want anything to do with it. I just don't like. If it was like Endgame, I'd be like, sure.
There's been a couple of movies where I'd have paid just about anything.
Like Bill and Ted 3's coming out, like home release. Like,
aye,
you bet I'll buy that. Like, but I'm not like.
Especially seeing as how the most recent trailer legitimately looks amazing.
Aye.
Like I thought it was going to be one of those things where it'd be like a pure homer, like it doesn't look good, and I'm convincing myself it looks good. Like it looks fantastic.
I was convinced. I was scared about that as well. I just 30 quid, man. Come on.
It's too much. I guess here it would be like 25, but it's still a lot.
I just don't like. It's that thing where like I just don't care enough. Like if it was something I really wanted to see, I would totally grudge it. I'd grudge it, but I'd do it.
Aye.
But like I don't care. Like I don't want to see Mulan. I didn't want to see Mulan when it was coming to the cinema. Like I just don't have any interest in it, so I'm not spending 30 quid to watch it in my room.
Yeah.
Stephen, nobody's forcing you to spend $30 on Mulan. Me and Joe are going to hold you at gunpoint and be like, give me the $30.
I think it looks pretty good, to be fair, but
I think Stephen might pay $30 not to see Mulan.
I'm going to pay $30 to not have Disney Plus.
Can we mark the time 1:16:31 just to run to the bathroom and just take a quick break?
Yep.
It'll be like a minute or whatever, but I appreciate I've already got up. And we can talk about whatever other stuff we've watched quickly.
Yeah.
Awesome. Give me 2 seconds. I am back.
Oh.
That's at 1:18:11 if we're going to edit it, but...
Cool.
We discussed some other stuff we've watched briefly.
Yeah, go for it. I genuinely don't.
I can't think
remember anything. But...
I kept a little list. I always do. I did Frozen 2 again.
Aye.
Because me and Kelly had watched it. We're doing like house stuff and phoning people, and I watched it again. That movie's a 10 out of 10.
Aye.
Like legitimate 10 out of 10.
Mm-hmm.
Like the only reason that it isn't the best animated movie I've ever seen is because I saw Toy Story 2 and The Incredibles at an age where it is now an important part of my development as a child.
Yeah, totally.
Do you know what I mean? Like, it is so good. I'm trying to say to Kelly, like, we need to watch this again. Like, you have to see this.
Aye. It is in every way better than the first one.
It's crazy, man.
It's mental. And it's kind of a shame because folk are just like, it's Frozen 2. And I'm like, no.
It is. It is sensational, man. I know, like, talking to kind of friends and stuff that I wouldn't name and shame, like, the argument for it not being good as good as the first one is the plot and how it is a bit more demanding plot-wise, which I appreciate. So,
But, like, I get it. Like, the kids who watched Frozen 1 have grown up.
Aye.
And, like, so, like, they can do that. I think that's, like, cool. The conversation I keep having with Larissa is, like, should they make a third one?
I mean, if it's gonna be as good as that, then sure. Like,
yeah, like, I don't know what they would do, but, like, I want to see them go... I want to see Arendelle go to war.
aye.
I want it to be, like, Elsa, like, in front of the boats, like, bringing ice out of the sea, like, stabbing folk with ice. But
I think it's the same argument that I use with Star Wars, and like we've been there and been there and been there, and like I know you guys didn't like the most recent one, but like I totally did. And it's that thing of like, stop making them if you don't have a good one to make, but like see if it's good. Like, as far in my humble, completely uneducated and apparently very wrong opinion, like I think all the Star Wars stuff that Disney's done is good. So when they're like, oh, this person's making one, everyone gets a Star Wars movie, I'm like, sure. Like, see, until you put something out that I think sucks, like, great, because I'll watch it. It's the same with the Marvel stuff, like, they're approaching like 30 movies or whatever. I'm like, see, until you make one that I don't want to watch, then fire in. Like, I don't have this sense of like movie traditionalism. I don't even know if that's a word. Maybe I've made up a word. But do you know what I mean? And like, oh, you've made too many. Anything more than a trilogy or whatever, just no. Like,
could you imagine what it would have been like if they'd like rebooted Star Wars? Folk would be losing their minds. Like,
aye, like see if you're making good stuff, then I don't mind. Like,
totally,
because the way I think of it is like I loved Rise of Skywalker. Or it's not so much a good example because I loved it because of my investment in the characters. But say Rogue One, right, or Solo. Objectively, I think they're really fun movies. So it like, regardless of the Star Wars branding and set dressing and like era, like starship models, like I still think they're fun movies.
Yeah.
You know, like that could have been Lord of the Rings Rogue One, and I would have still liked it if it was that same story in a different setting, because I liked the story. Do you know?
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
I'm sure folk will say there's not a Death Star in Lord of the Rings or whatever. You know what I mean. So yeah, until they like, I'd watch Frozen 3.
Yeah, me too.
So that got a 10, and like I appreciate I'm very forgiving with movies and can be guilty of like putting up with a lot, and that's like fine. That's just the way I am, I guess. The Tom Cruise Mummy movie's pretty good, but I very rarely give a 10. Not that anyone cares. I get this crisis of confidence now where I'm like, I gave it a 10, as if folk are gonna like share that on Facebook. No one actually cares what score I've gave it, but it's a 10 out of 10. There's literally nothing I would change about it.
Aye, I agree.
And speaking of 10s, I watched one that wasn't a 10. I watched Obsessed, which is a thriller that is on. It's like it's from like 2010 or something. It's a thriller starring Idris Elba and Beyonce.
Oh God.
And is it Ali Warter, the girl that was in like Heroes and stuff? She's in it, so it's like she plays Idris Elba's assistant at work, and she's like obsessed with him, and she's like stalking him and stuff and trying to manipulate him. And it was fine, but it came back to this thing, right, of Idris Elba plays an American guy and the accent's terrible.
Oh, really?
And just the whole time I was like, could he not just be English? Do you know what I mean? Just be like, he moved from England
yeah,
for uni or something. I don't know, like, there's no need for it to be so forced. But yeah, not super good, but I won't go super in depth, seeing as how we've kind of changed up what the podcast is now. What else is on the list? I finally finished Bird Box.
Yeah.
I had, for personal family reasons, like I ended up alone on the Christmas that Bird Box came out, and watched half of Bird Box before meeting my family, and then never went back to it. It's good, yeah, it's super good. I like that a lot. I rewatched 1917 that I have screamed from the rooftops about ever since I saw it. It's just the best. Just the best thing ever. Just love that movie so much. And I watched, this is the main one I wanted to bring up, just because I know Chris is sort of totally the opposite. I watched Birds of Prey, whatever the subtitle was, and I thought it was like super good, and I know Chris was like raging. It was like that, like to the extent of like, I would pay not to see this sort of rage.
Like, reminded me of the downfall
I thought it
of
was
cinema.
good, like legitimately good.
Yeah.
I can explain why if you'd like, but there's a lot of like stylized like animation over. Have you seen it, Stephen?
Nah. I keep going to watch it and then I just don't.
You should. I would say you should. I think from reading the comics as well, like it's a comic book movie, and there's a lot of like animated overlays over characters and stuff, and sort of visual effects like that I thought looked good. I thought it was like super charming, and it's like I like that even though it is over the top and like the Harley Quinn character's way out there and like kooky, it was like all this crazy stuff happened in these DC movies and in Suicide Squad, and she's did all these crazy things and killed folk and did this and did that, and she's like actually seen repercussions of it.
Yeah.
Which
Cool.
I thought was like interesting. Whereas like even like I think the MCU is tremendous, but it took them until like after the Avengers to be like, oh, like stuff happens because of what these folk do.
Until after the Avengers before they thought, well, maybe a woman could be a main character.
Well, but do you know what I mean? Like they got into the stuff in like Daredevil and the start of Spider-Man Homecoming, of like there were repercussions for this massive crazy thing that happened. It was not to the same scale, but it was along those lines of like Harley Quinn's did this to this person, did this to that person, this has happened, and here's some like actual legitimate repercussions for it that are then directly affecting the plot in this movie.
Yeah.
And I liked it. I didn't. It's my fault for not, but I made a note that the use of a licensed soundtrack was fantastic. I can't remember what song or whatever.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, I put in capital letters "licensed soundtrack is great."
Fair enough.
So I remember they use in the same way Thor Ragnarok did. They use like actual licensed songs in scenes. It's not just like the radio's playing.
Yeah.
Do you know? The plot was like super easy to follow, I thought, even though it could have been a mess because there's like time jumping. So it will show you like different stuff from different characters' points of views. If that makes sense. And it just seemed to flow like super well. And then my kind of last line was just, it's like a really solid like Gotham City crime story, and then they've like layered on a lot of like personality on top of it.
Yeah.
I loved it. Like I liked it a lot. I'd be interested to hear what Chris thinks, given the difference in opinion.
Oh dear, right. I thought it was absolutely terrible. I thought it was a trend that was maybe 7 or 8 years too late. I thought it was DC's very, very poor take on a sort of fourth wall breaking Deadpool. I thought that Hugh McGregor must have had his family kidnapped at ransom in order to take and act in the role that he did.
I will say to be fair, the reason that I've not mentioned Hugh McGregor is because at no point in my notes have I ever wrote down anything good. It's not that he's bad, that he's just sort of there. It's really strange for a lead villain. Like, you think Ewan McGregor, awesome actor, you know what I mean, lead villain, playing like a kind of eccentric villain. I was like, that sounds amazing, and he's just sort of hanging about. I don't know.
Yeah. And I just wanted the kind of film to end. I just didn't get it. I didn't understand why they thought, okay, let's maybe just like this mass murdering killer who's Harley Quinn, who's made all of her life's hell in the end and stuff. I just didn't enjoy it. I just didn't like it at all.
That's fair.
Just not my cup of tea.
I also watched Midway, from the director of Independence Day. There's some kind of shoddy CGI in there, but apart from that, it's a pretty well made like war movie. Thought that was pretty good. And I watched Parasite and it is one of those movies that is why we've changed the format of the podcast, because you can't really talk about it without spoiling it.
Yeah.
I'd be very happy to talk about that on the next or future episode.
Yeah, I could do that for sure.
Yeah, I've not seen it, but I totally will do that.
It was very charming. I'd say that. I didn't expect that. And to be fair, I didn't know what it was when I watched it, and was not pleasantly surprised. Like, I knew it was good given the plaudits it had, but it was, it was a good experience watching it. We should discuss at some point in the future.
There's even the director in general. There's a lot of his films which have massive talking points, like especially in Snowpiercer and The Host as well. There's a lot of stuff going on that would definitely make a good podcast.
Yeah.
Cool.
Oh well. That was a bit of a shorter show this time, instead of 2 hours of this movie's really good but we can't talk about it.
Yeah.
This time we got to go in depth.
Cutting to the point a bit more.
Yes, yeah. I think if people are actually interested in engaging with us, and it legitimately surprises me every time we put one of these out and people do messages about stuff. It's super cool. Keep it coming. I like it a whole lot. We can see what people want us to watch and talk about. Until then, we'll just figure out the stuff we're interested in. Stuff we're passionate about talking about. I think.
Cool.
Definitely.
Yeah.
There was that awkward silence there on Skype, but Skype also just cuts out sometimes, so I don't know if you said anything.
I said yes.
Cool. Awesome.
I said definitely. I said hell yes, bro.
I don't have any specific ideas in mind, but I'm sure we'll discuss that.
And like you said, I would definitely be happy for suggestions, because even if it's something fresh that none of us have seen, kind of this, I know I had seen a couple of them, but the likes of us all watching Spring together for the first time, I actually thought I'd seen that film. I don't know what the hell I was thinking that I'd watched. I'm going to come across this film in 4 years and be like, alright, that's what I thought I watched.
I think given our viewing habits, we on average must watch so many more movies than the average person.
It's so much.
So it's difficult to find a series or a movie that we haven't, one of us haven't seen. So that experience of watching something fresh that none of us have seen is extremely rare.
Yeah. Especially when it's horror, man, because I went through a big phase of just watching that, and not even, I watched so many horror movies I don't remember what I've seen.
Aye.
I'm sure Chris is the same.
I'll be exactly the same.
But then again,
there was you asked us during the week about the film The Possession.
Aye.
And I was like, no, I've not seen all of that, but I know I have because I sat down and watched it one night. But it's just probably during the old podcast days when we were trying to squeeze in so much on the Thursday night ready for the Friday. I probably just watched it and totally forgot about it.
I saw that in the cinema and can't even tell you what happens in it. So
it's just the Exorcist, but instead of Catholicism, it's Judaism.
Oh, okay.
Is it not a bit like a kind of Dybbuk box type thing?
Aye, that's kind of where it starts from. It's a Dybbuk box, so better get Big Zach in.
I don't know what happened, but I know that he opened the Dybbuk box and he's still retweeting folks. So
Zach Bagans and Post Malone opened the Dybbuk box, then Post Malone crashed his car 4 times.
I'm sure those were totally linked and not linked to narcotic use.
It was.
You see, he's got that
was
Robert.
It was a Dybbuk box. What?
You see, he's got Robert the doll at his museum. You need to ask the doll if you're allowed a photo with him, and if he turns his head, that means no. And if you continue to take the photo, you'll be haunted forever.
I think we need to make a promise to ourselves that someday we're all going to go to Las Vegas together to go to Zach Baggins' Haunted Museum.
It's like any
Sure.
excuse for a possible future stag do.
Chris, can that please be your stag do?
It's just, I'm not organising my stag do, somebody else can do it.
I'm going to phone your cousin and be like, listen mate, I'm the captain now.
Phone Aiden, been like, right, here's the plan, you need to organise this.
Also, my Sky Sports app has just updated me extremely loudly that Liverpool have signed Olympiacos left back Kostas Simikas. In case anyone wants some in-depth transfer news, like 3 days late, because this won't come out the day we record it.
Yeah.
Just in case you were wondering, Steve.
People 3 days from now will know what happened when Def Jam Recordings tweeted that once their Twitter hits 1 million followers, they've got a special announcement with a video game controller emoji.
What?
Yeah.
Really?
Aye.
I'll go like that right now. I want to know. What, you need to follow them?
Aye.
The people need. It's going to be a phone game, but also
It's going to be a phone game.
Oh well.
And on that note,
This has been fun.
Yeah, I'm really hungry. I need to eat my dinner.
Yeah, I haven't had dinner either, and it's 8 p.m. or 8:20.
Yep. So, if you're listening,
Right.
then thanks for listening.
Aye.
If you have the ability to reach out, comment on YouTube, or tweet us at Shaky Cam Pod on Twitter. Tell us what you think of these movies. We will respond.
We will. We're not in high demand.
If you tweet us, we will come.
We'll respond immediately.
I will quit my job just to tweet you back. Right, I need to go. So I'll catch you
Yeah.
later.
Nice one.
Bye bye.
See you next time. Bye.